Well, hello, everybody, and hello, Chad. How was your week this week, Chad?
It's been a long week.
Yeah.
But definitely had some highlights along the way.
Yeah. I should say more month because, well, you're a monthly guest on the program.
Sure.
To talk about all things Newton with your exceptional wealth of knowledge from Newton and all things Newton. And Sissy can't be with us on the program today. She needed a break this week, needed a bye week. So it's just me and you flying solo, but I think we can get it all taken care of and handled in all this kind of way, you think?
I think we can do it.
We could do it, can't we? All right, Chad. I was really interested last week when I was talking with Sissy what she thought of the forum. I know that now there's another forum, and Harvey County Talk live streamed a forum that happened at the Newton Area Senior Center. But I'm just interested, what was your take on the forum? How do you felt like it went? The planning that went into it, right? We did, like I told Sissy, we put our best foot forward. And I think we did a pretty good job. But how do you feel about the forum, and what are your takeaways, Chad?
Well, I think it went pretty well. I think that we could have probably had two different forums, and we could have spent a couple of hours with each group of candidates pretty easily. And I did get some constructive criticism from a couple of folks, which is great. Especially when it's actual constructive criticism that is given with the attitude that, hey, things could be better if you do this, rather than just wanting to chew your pound of flesh. I've had nobody that has wanted to quote chew the pound of flesh, but I think it went pretty well, and I think that one of the number one things that I think happened there was just in talking with some of the candidates that we worked with on that, is that we built some trust with some of those folks, and because there were folks that expressed concerns, and you name it, they were concerned about it. Yeah. They were concerned with what kind of questions they were going to face. They were concerned about the venue. They were concerned about this being an invite-only thing. I mean, you can name things, and at least one candidate would voice something. And but at the end of the day, afterwards, those candidates who have discussed it with me afterwards, and several have. All those concerns that they had just kind of went away. And so I feel pretty good about that. Well,
and did you feel like it was the typical jitters, or, I mean, I know this. I know that I've been in the hot seat before, and I've been invited to a forum, and it was with the chamber and the now, and I didn't know what to expect. And I had
there
to
was
go
a
put
lot
my best foot forward. I mean, so was the skepticism there?
I think so. New group of people coming in to do a political forum, and people didn't know really what to expect, and that's par for the course. And I would feel the same way if I was a candidate. And I will say that before it started, and as I was doing all the question writing and all of those things, I said to myself that there was a couple of things that I wanted to accomplish, and if I did those, I would be proud of myself. And I was able to satisfy those things. And the number one thing was that we hosted a candidate forum for city commission, and we didn't ask, and water rates were never mentioned. And I think, to me, that was really important, because the focus for me, or the focus that I wanted to focus on the future.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we had that when we did that. The other thing, when you look at the Board of Education, there were a whole host of decisions that got made over the course of the last several months and year that were incredibly divisive. Those things are done.
Yeah.
They're over. And we need to be looking at what the future is. And that's really what candidates need to be discussing.
Yeah.
And so if I can, maybe deliver a message based on the forum to the voters of Harvey County right now, it is that because we've got an election coming and there'll be more. When you're looking at candidates, ask yourself that question. What is it they offer for the future of this organization? What is it they're offering for the future of my living here?
Well, like my hashtag, future of Newton.
Right.
The first time I ran, future of Newton.
That's really what you need to be evaluating candidates on, because the decision that was made however long ago, it's not going to change unless somebody brings things up to try and change it.
Yeah.
And is it imperative to the future of this community to change it and revisit it? And I would say that things like water rates, Walton School, Railerway, all of those things, no, they're not horribly important to what we need to be thinking about where we're going to be 5 years from now.
Yeah. Well, and see, speaking of Railerway, that was one thing I was wanting to talk to you about. I know I've been trying to keep up on it, but I wanted somebody else's take to bounce it off of. From not being in the seat, not being the board member, and trying to kind of understand what's transpired here. With the Railerway, we had the situation, and then there was an exception made that really was contrary to what was the normalcy of the situation, which caught a lot of people in a way. I know how I personally feel about that. I'm not going to ask you how you personally feel about that. It's a very contested issue, it seems like, right now in the community. But something recently did happen, and they voted on a new Railerway policy.
Correct.
The way I take that, and this is just me, folks, saying this, okay? And then I want to turn it over to Chad, but the way I take it is, well, if we've done all this, we've put all this wording in here, we've just provided there to be, I don't know, I could almost say a justification after the fact for the initial choice that was made, that was one that I am not going to get on board with. Like I said, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but how do you feel about the change of the Railerway and what they chose to do, Chad?
Well, the change the most recent change, right?
Yes.
That's what we're talking about, and what they voted on for
going forward
this month or whatever.
Yeah.
So what the real change there is, number one, I think it's important for people to understand that the SALT team is the one that created all of this. That's the Student Athletic Leadership Team,
okay,
or Activities Leadership. This was so the changes that they were voting on this last little bit here was student driven.
Okay.
Okay. So that's important. I think that's very important. And because it was student driven, and that particular group is limited by how often they can meet, it took a long time to get that done.
Yeah.
And where the biggest changes was, and again, it was the student group that brought this forward, the creation of an appeals process. And I'm okay with it. Seriously, I'm okay with that. I cannot speak on behalf of the members of DeFi, which is where this really came from. If we go back and look at where this really came from, this really did not come from within the school system. It was not started by anybody within the school system. This was all started by DeFi. They saw a program that was called Life of an Athlete, and saw value in it, and began working to get the school system on board with what was called Life of an Athlete. Life of an Athlete became the Railerway. And I'm okay with all of that. So that was what was going on. And so what members of the community have vocalized to the Board of Education is that they do not like the language that was put in there in February. And that as long as that, and it's one sentence, as long as that sentence is in there, they have a problem with this particular policy.
And what you're talking about is the ability to make exceptions.
Every situation is different. Administrators have discretion.
But see, and that's my problem, Chad.
And that has remained in the policy. To some extent, I have a problem with it too. I have a problem with it because of what it can open up to. Okay?
But then again,
honestly, as a wrestling parent, okay, not in high school yet, but as a wrestling parent, you know, well, we're going through it right now because of what's going on over at Chisholm Middle School. I feel like with the existence of that clause, I have every right to walk into, you can choose an administrator's office and say, look, you have the right to discretion. It's not my son's fault that teachers have not updated their grades.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's not his fault. They haven't updated the grades. They're showing incompletes. They're showing Fs, even though all the work is done. It just hasn't been graded. And you have the right to discretion. So I expect that on October 31st, when his season starts, he will be on that mat.
Okay, and see, here's my problem.
It opens everything up.
Agreed.
Because I can do that.
Agreed. And see, then it takes it back and it puts, and now granted, I know that there was some way in which there could be an exception done by school faculty. That was one of the things in the Railerway derailing that took place, was that the decision had been made that the individual would not perform, and it went all the way to the school board to make sure that they could. And my big issue with this is and I've got children in school, okay? And the consensus that I'm receiving is that, well, the Railerway policy really doesn't matter anymore. And that the consensus from some of these kids are, well, I suffered under the Railerway policy, if you want to look at it like that. I had to not participate, or my grades, you know, whatever. And now, is there a situation where, I mean, there's no equality there? In my opinion, I'm sorry, I'm not doing that to you, Chad, but it's hard for me because
let me.
Drugs are everywhere, Chad. You know, I mean, it's to the point where I read an article that you guys put out that Sheriff was talking about the fentanyl and how it's not here yet, but it's here. I mean, we're in this situation where this choices for youth that they're making have long-term, lasting, lifelong consequences. I myself know this from choices that I made when I was a teenager. And when you begin to use an institution that's the first line of defense for socialization for our youth, which has standards, which you participate in this, you get the, you know, you don't, you do something wrong, here's the consequence. We're just continuously removing these consequences, in my opinion, totally my opinion, which is leading us down a dangerous road, because, well, the consequences will come for the behavior, but sometimes the behavior doesn't catch up to somebody until, you know, it's too late for them to be able to do anything about it. And I am a for our youth in this community. I'm for our youth. I was a youth that had went down the wrong path. I made choices that were not correct that affected me for the rest of my life. And you can't ever take it back. And I want for these youngsters to at least have, you know, that minor offense. You know, you mess up, you have the minor offense. It's at school. You have your punishment, whether that means you don't get to participate in a sport before it becomes a criminal act, and the consequence is jail.
Well, and one of the things that has come to my brain over and over and over again over the last several months is this. And and this is what I say to parents when we talk. Okay? And if they don't like the Railerway, and let's be straight, there is a significant number of people who don't like it, period. It doesn't matter that there's the discretionary clause. It doesn't matter that there is now an appeals process. They just don't like it. They don't think they should be having to sign it. They don't think their kids should sign it. They don't think that they should be subject to it. Here's the question that I'm going to ask. Who do you want dealing with your kid when there's a problem? Do you want the school to deal with it? Or do you want me to deal with it as a juvenile intake worker? In the absence of a Railerway policy, it's going to be me.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
I'm going to be the one dealing with it.
And if it's not you,
I'm going to be the one that is going to call you and get you out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning and tell you, little Johnny was out partying. He's been charged with the following things. He is not detention eligible today. You need to come to the courthouse and pick him up.
and then that just
It's going to be me. And on that first time through, it's not going to be a big deal because he's not juvenile detention eligible today. But the next time, he very well could be. You want me dealing with that, or do you want the principal and the athletic director and the coach dealing with that? I mean, I'm just throwing it out there.
I'm a firm believer, absolutely a firm believer that the first line of defense for our kids in our community starts at our public schools. Starts at our schools. That's what it is.
You know, and I'm going to make another statement that I made this week to someone after a pretty big meeting. We were talking just about life in general. I mean, we were talking about all different topics. Public education made this country great. Period. Public education has made this country great. There has been, over the last 30 years, an all-out war against public education. I don't understand it. Public education is the great equalizer for all of us.
Standard education. Read, write, and arithmetic.
You can get an education. You can get an education. You can get a high school diploma. You can become employable because we have this structure in place. So, who do you want dealing with your kid? Do you want somebody with a badge doing it? Or do you want a teacher doing it?
And I got to say, I'm not correcting my statement, but I want to make sure, as I was listening to what Chad was saying, I was thinking about what I said, and I said the first line of defense is a school system. And that's not entirely true, because it starts in the home.
Yes, it does.
It starts in the home. But from there, that's the first opportunity that our youth, our children, have to go out into public, into a social setting, and be able to adequately maintain. And by doing that, that's a pretty good chance that you're going to go out into society and adequately maintain. There's also a strong connection between youth getting into problems because they're not able to appropriately behave or make the right choices, or make choices that are illegal, let's say, taboo, whatever, that then, the school system is the one in which we ultimately want dealing with that. I would think.
Yeah,
I would think.
Now schools don't need to be and are not a catch-all.
Yeah,
there are things that they shouldn't be dealing with, and they don't need to deal with. But you know, the argument has been made to me in the past that schools shouldn't be in sports. That's not. And if you look at Europe, they're not. Okay?
Yeah. We do have this weird. I understand that. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's what we have done here, And that's what we've done for decade upon decade upon decade upon decade. Somewhere along the line, there has been a value placed upon that. And you can choose to agree with that, or you can choose to disagree with that. But at the end of the day, that in practice is what is going on. And because we have placed that importance in and on activities, band, music, drama, forensics, and by the way, that's not searching for dead bodies.
Yeah.
Athletics, we have placed importance upon that. And because we have placed importance upon that, and because all of those things are a privilege, not a right, we absolutely should have something like the Railerway in place, and it should be enforced and enforceable. So that's my statement.
Thank you for the take on that. I hope I didn't get you any muddy waters there.
There's lots. Anytime this thing comes up, there's going to be lots and lots of muddy waters.
Yes, lots of opinions.
And when you look at the votes and you look at what was voted on recently, putting an appeals process in there, honestly, I agree with. I think it's a good thing. I think if there was anything missing from the policy when it was created, that was missing. And there's absolutely nothing wrong, because we need to be asking, did they violate the spirit of this or not?
Yeah.
Right? And straight up, there's a situation that occurred at the high school that the question is begged. And in the absence of the self-report clause, which is there, that situation would have created a massive, massive problem for a kid. And so here's what happens. One kid decided, this was last spring, decided it would be a good idea to put booze in their water bottle and to go to school. Mm-hmm. That kid got punished.
We'll take
And that kid got punished by the legal system, by people with badges.
Absolutely. And there was something recently that happened.
Here's where things came off the rails, and this is why he faced criminal charges. He handed that bottle to another student. That student had no idea what was in it. And that student took a nice big drink. And they swallowed it. Me personally, I don't think I would have, because, it ain't water. But now you've got a student who has drank alcohol on school property. She went to administration and said, this is what happened. Well, do we punish her under the letter of the law and under the letter of the Railerway policy? Do we now look at that student and say, you're going to sit out for the next however long? I don't think so. Okay? And that's not about that's not about the administrator needing discretion. That's about there needing to be an appeals process, which was put in there. Because at that point, under the letter of the law, we're going to say you need to sit out. You have recourse. You can ask for an appeal, and that appeal will be done quickly. And under the appeal, the first question is, well, did they violate the spirit of this policy? That student did not. There is absolutely no way they did.
Yeah.
And also, with the way the policy currently reads, with self-report, when they went in and said, look, this is what happened. Okay, we're done here.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can't, I understand this. There's no situation in which can be written out that would cover, there's no rule that would cover everything in every way.
You can't think of everything.
But I have been adamant, and it still goes back to this, and what I hear from you, and we'll move on, but I guess after having the conversation with you now, just what we're doing, I'm settling it up to, this is two different things. What happened in the past with the Railerway and the choices that some of these people chose to make during that time, irrespective of all that, you can have an opinion on that. You can believe that. You can vote for, not vote for this person, those people, whoever, the culprit. But this is something different. this is really a good thing to go forward with, in your opinion, you feel, because it allows
I do. I mean, I still don't like that sentence being in there. I'm like a lot of the folks in the public that have voiced that. I didn't like it when it was created. I didn't like it because I saw what it could become and how it could be used. But honestly, you just got to pick your battles.
Well, and I was, speaking of everything that we're talking about, drugs, all this, kind of cap this off. It wasn't that long ago that I remember seeing that there was some kids that had, I think, the second time in Wichita schools where some kid brought some edibles to school.
Yep.
And he wound up
that was just this week,
getting people sick, So we are fighting a battle on an entirely next level, next generation thing. And people, hold on tight to your kids. People in the community, look out for the youth. It takes a whole community to raise them. Railerway kind of ties into that. Everything ties into that. We have to, you talk about the future of Newton. We were talking about that. Well, our children are the future of Newton. So another thing, I'm an avid Kansan reader, obviously. I love just reading papers and making check marks on them and say, I want to talk to Chad about this when he comes on the program, And for some reason, and I don't know why, but it's probably just because I'm a government guy, and right now there's 2 races going on for school board and city commission, right? So that's got my attention. But then I keep seeing some blips come up about the county. And I don't know, I'm listening to word on the street, and people are starting to raise an eyebrow at how the county commission is functioning. I'm not saying anything personal to any one of you, but there's just so much division. I'll just call it division, major separation and division when it comes to how the county commission is working together, at least from the public optics of it. And I don't think I'm too far on that. I've said it on the program before. We've talked about it on the program before. We continue. Here we are a year down the road, and I'm beating the same drum. And it's that, we do this forum, we do these things, we digitally capture it. If you get a chance, Harvey County Talk went in and digitally captured the Newton City Commission forum held at the Newton Area Senior Center. We did our own with Chad. So I'm big about getting to know who these people are, so that way when we put these people in these positions, that it's not something that we regret. We definitely don't want buyer's remorse. We're too small of a community. We ain't got enough money to make mistakes like this, right?
So I think you're talking about how many 2-to-1 votes that there are at the county commission. Am I
first
on?
and foremost, you're getting there. Okay. I'm to the point where I'm wondering, is anybody else seeing what I'm seeing? And then I go out and I make phone calls, and it's a confirmation that yes. My big thing, I made a comment last week with Sissy on the program, and I kind of thought about it, because over a week's time you think, did I say that right? Did I don't want to say something wrong? And I just said it looks as though that the county, it has a problem with investing in the parks, which are one of the direct amenities in which people in the community get to have. We have roads, I said. Yeah, we have bridges. That's great. And I'm if somebody were to say, well, Lance, we actually spend 1.4 millions on these parks. And so we're spending money in it. We just don't have the money to spend this extra little bit of money. But it just appears to me, Chad, and that there is no forward progression taking place, that there's getting hairs being split to the point where this whole government agency is screeching to a halt. I see it coming. I don't know.
So I think that what you hinted around, you talked around.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
The issue. Well, no, you talked around the issue, because at this point, I'm not in the camp that thinks that the county commission is the problem here.
Okay.
Okay,
good call. I'm interested. Yes. Okay, I'm listening.
I actually scribbled myself a note because there was a thought that I wanted to make sure that I got out there. Where this is coming from is that we've got a really vocal group of folks who are against the county spending money. Period.
Yeah, we're anti money spenders.
And so things like the shower house out at West Park become a lightning rod because the costs grew over time, and they just kept growing and growing over time. And you know what? Everyone needs to acknowledge that that's what happened.
Yeah.
But it's really that those folks, and as I'm looking at my notes, just I think it was last week or the week before, the county commission had a meeting where they approved the sale of a wood chipper or the purchase of a new wood chipper for the road and bridge department. Okay. And that's not a cheap item.
You got to have one.
Yep. And if I'm remembering correctly, there was also a purchase for West Park on that agenda. And also there was a change order to the elevator in the courthouse, and so they're going to be spending a minimum of another $60,000 on this elevator that's already eaten up $90,000 because it doesn't work. The darn thing don't work, and so they're trying to get it fixed. So all of these things were on the same agenda, and I might be kind of interchanging a couple of weeks here, but there was a week where there was like a bunch of purchases. And I don't remember who the individual was, but they turned to their friend at the conclusion of that meeting and said, "Good Lord, they just spent so much money today." They didn't care what the money was spent on. They cared that the money was being spent.
Well, I've got news for some people. I have an MPA, and I'm just going to say that the business of government is to spend money. No matter what you do, you're spending money, and your revenue is generated through taxes and different various forms of taxes and grants and money. But the truth of the matter is government spend money. That's what they do. That's what their job is. And your elected official is there to be responsible, to be the last check and balance. And if you're somebody that thinks that we don't need to spend the money on a wood chipper, I'm here to tell you, my dad was the noxious weeds director for Harvey County. Yeah, we have to maintain our roadways. They go through with a blade. They've got a really interesting machine that cuts down all of the overhang off the roadways, and then they have to go and they have to chip it up, or they have to cut it up, or they have to haul it. If they're spending that much money on fuel and they need a new truck to haul it, and the gas prices are going up and truck costs are going up, so it's going to cost $40,000 more for fuel and the expense of a vehicle, or we need a new bucket on this, what's your proposal? Not to do it? That doesn't make any sense at all. That's irrational and very illogical.
So yeah, that's where I think it's coming from, and the reason that the parks are able to sort of call attention to it is that specifically West Park, there's stuff needing done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a building out there that needs a new roof. That costs money.
Yeah.
They chose to not move forward with a bank restoration project. That project is, let's see, what's this? This is 2023. So that project is what, 5 years old?
Yeah, 2019 was when they started looking at the problem.
So, and they've been trying and on that project in specific, they weren't the only group that was going to be putting money into this thing. They were going to get some money from
federal
FEMA and also KDEM, which is the Kansas equivalent of FEMA. So there was money coming from state and fed to help with the project. The county was still going to be on the string for a nice big chunk of change.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the county commission looked at it and went, I just don't think we should spend the money on this. You can't control a river. You know what? They're right. You can't control a river.
Yeah.
Okay? And at this point, they're not looking at losing any buildings out there. They're looking at maybe having to move a road and maybe losing a road.
But won't this just go on forever, Chad?
But we're in this environment where so here's the real deal. We're in this environment where the people who are coming to the meeting and speaking up during public comment are telling the commission, don't spend any money. We don't need the shower house. We don't need that. We don't need this. We don't need that. You can pick something. It doesn't matter. They don't think it's needed. don't spend the money.
Well, I have a
that's
question.
what they say.
I have a question. Okay, now I understand that this is a group of people you say that show up. Do you think that these people are just a group of people that are all of the same mindset that think that if they show up, that they need to show up and protest this, whatnot, X, Y, Z? Or do you think it's you know what I mean? I mean, because I get messages all the time telling me, hey, you need to show up to the county because we need to protest the wind energy. And so then they go and they send all this stuff out, and then then all these people are showing up. And I'm telling you, that's largely instigated by one commissioner. But one commissioner is doing that. I'm on chains. Don't take me off of these chains, people. But yeah.
At the same time, they are people who are smart enough to show up. Okay.
Or they have the time, because most people can't be retired throughout the day.
They have the time. They have the time.
So you have a select group.
They're smart enough to show up.
Yeah.
I mean, straight up, the Planning and Zoning Board voted this week.
Yeah.
And that room was full. And it was an evening meeting. But everybody who spoke said pretty much the exact same thing. There wasn't anybody that spoke against the policy that was sitting in front of them.
That is because they're all intaking the same information, getting all together in a bus practically, and then traveling on down there to have a problem with it.
But my statement or my question is, you can't tell me that there's not people that were against what that policy is going to do. I know they're out there. But they weren't there on Tuesday.
Well,
so when, that's
still, Chad, when you're talking about people that are all up in a frenzy and they're wanting to yell and scream and put cameras in commissioners' faces if they're going to be for wind energy and this whole fiasco that we saw, the average person does not want to show up there and take the opportunity to speak out so they can get verbally abused by these people. I mean, these are people that are so, I don't know, we talk about it. I say people are so far right they're left, or so far left they're right. They're just people that are so focused on their own stuff that they're just gonna.
I'll tell you this.
It is what it is.
I'll tell you this. When I made that statement that they're smart enough to be there, right? So there's a group of folks that has been discussing for, I don't know, years now, the idea of a bike/walking trail from North Newton to Heston.
I'd love it. I love it. I'm on favor of it.
And those folks that have been sort of on the, we'll call it the inner circle of that discussion, and they're putting the skin in the game of looking for the grant money and writing those things when they come up. They have discussed the game plan to get the county commission. And the game plan to get the county commission is the same game plan that got the county commission for wind.
Yeah, have people show up. Have your people show up.
They're straight up. They're like, what t-shirt color do we want to use? What talking points are we going to use? And what group of people can we recruit to make sure that they show up every single week? And if the only thing they do is sit there in that t-shirt, that's fine.
But this is not, I mean, I'm with you, Chad. I'm with you. I understand what you're saying. I realize that this is a absolutely appropriate way to get your voice heard at these meetings and these public comments and times in which these decisions are going to be made. But, I mean, I'm still of the mindset that it's like the wind, it's like the energy thing, okay? I said it on the program months ago. Yeah, we have all these people that are anti-wind energy, and that's great. Well, what's next? Solar?
Yeah, it is.
And then what's next? Anything other than I mean, what are we doing here, people? Are we just, I mean, come out with it. Now we're going to have all these problems with solar panels because solar panels are bad. Oh, and what's happening in Halstead over there? Well, we can't let what's happening in Halstead over there happen right now. We just need to cut off all economic development that has anything to do that doesn't agree with your political ideology. This is a problem. This is why we're in the state that we're in.
What's happening in Halstead is 30 long-term jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, how many jobs do they have in that community?
I have no idea, but I'm sure they could use 30.
Oh, I bet that's a large percentage of decent paying jobs that provide what they need.
You know that this county can use 30.
Oh, no. We're going to need to show up and tell them that they don't know what they're talking about. They're not educated. Those things are going to start a fire and they're going to burn down the whole county. In the case of wind energy, the shadows are just horrible. I mean, I'm a community builder, and I'm a person that believes that not necessarily everything that I say and believe in my political ideology or my worldview on life is absolutely paramount to yours. I'm somebody that has the ability to sit across the table from Chad here, and Chad and I don't agree on things together sometimes, and it doesn't matter because in the end, we're both trying to work towards the same goal, which is to build a better future for our community. That doesn't always mean Chad's way is the right way, right, Chad?
It doesn't. But, you brought up wind, you brought up solar. So I think it's important to know exactly the justification and the words that were used in the proposal that's going to go in front of the county commission in probably 2 weeks. Preserving agricultural farm ground and rural landscape is a high priority of the Harvey County Comprehensive Plan. Findings concluded that this use did not comply with those goals.
Solar energy.
And wind.
Okay, so but there's a difference here because solar and wind are two different forms of energy which require two entirely different things. Solar power...
That may be, but the wording is the same.
So we're just going to throw all energy out. It's now we're not going to even have the argument or we're not going to have the discussion when it comes to saying that maybe just quite possibly, going from banning wind energy in the community to banning solar to banning any kind of energy that's not what? Diesel? We need some diesel and some fossil fuels because that is going to take us into the future.
And there's also a new resolution that was put out by the Kansas Republican Party. And you've heard me say it before, I'm a proud rhino. Okay? I got some real problems with that resolution. And the reason that's important is that resolution is going to be quoted repeatedly as we work through these issues. And the problem that I have with the resolution is this. It states unequivocally that all of the policies created around wind and solar and alternative energy in Kansas at the state level over the course of the last, I don't know how many years, was a reaction to faulty assumptions concerning greenhouse gases. And that, quote, study after study has shown that humans and greenhouse gases have very little effect on global warming and environmental change.
Okay, but does that change
Here's my problem. Well, here's my problem. At no time does anybody discuss when are we going to run out of oil? When are we going to run out of natural gas? When are we going to run out of coal?
When are we going to run out of water?
We're probably going to run out of water before we run out of the other stuff. In some areas, we're starting to run out now. But, they don't, that is an inconvenient question. And the answer to that question, Lance, is within your child's lifetime. All three of them. And the models that are out there mathematically are really kind of flawed because they do not account for growth and they do not account for increased usage. But those models are showing that within your child's lifetime, within my child's lifetime, there will be no more oil.
Well, and no, don't start with that conspiracy theory now. We're the type of people that believe that solar power and wind energy are bad, but what you're saying is not ever going to happen. We got oil for
what I want to know is, what are we going to do when there's no more oil? We're talking 50 years. Okay? I'm going to be dead. I'm okay. I'm fine. And I might be oil in 1,000 years. Okay, so we can reboot this whole thing in 1,000 years, right?
Yes.
But what's my kid gonna do? He might love the idea of dad buying him a '69 GTO because that's like my favorite car in the world, and I would love to own one, or a '69 Dodge Charger. But I digress.
Either way.
But within 50 years, there's not going to be gas to put in it.
See, you're a doomsdayer, Chad, because we're getting into something that people think is just not relative.
We need to be thinking about those things now. I have stated, and I believe this with every bit of my soul. We have wasted the last 50 years completely, because we've always known that natural gas, oil, coal are a finite resource.
Yeah.
We have always known this.
We will run out.
Here's something that many people don't know, and they should know, and they should think about this. 100 years ago, every truck operated by the New York Times was electric. 100 years ago. And now here we are going, how long is it going to take to replace our fleet because we are going to run out of oil? We did nothing. Nothing. Not just for 50 years, but almost 100. We've done nothing. And everybody's making a big deal now over wind energy projects. Now, that's not to say that I supported the wind energy project in Harvey County.
Yeah.
Okay? There are portions of this county where I felt like that they should be nowhere near. Coincidentally.
Where they wanted to put them.
Exactly. Yeah. I really felt like they should be nowhere near there. Personally, do I have a problem with them being up in the other corner of our county where just look at what Marion County's got going on. Yeah. And it took 20 years for Marion County to start the construction process of that.
Yeah.
20 years. So I feel like what happened with this out and out, and it's not official yet, but the out and out ban countywide of both wind and solar, I feel like it's an overreaction. That's what I feel.
I know it's an overreaction, but
I feel like it's an overreaction.
Have the haters on the social media against
you. And I've been on the fence with this. I really have. I've been on the fence with this a lot, especially on the wind side. I've just been on the fence of, is it really an overreaction? Do you are you really okay? Where you at? So I've been on the fence. And so tomorrow I might feel differently than I feel today. But I just and I was really kind of surprised, quite honestly, that it took as long as it took to get where we're at now. I believe that. I believe that for a while now. That it just felt like I was surprised that this isn't where we were a year ago, and it's almost exactly a year. And
well, there's been a lot of effort by a lot of people to make sure that we absolutely don't have any kind of a renewable energy here in Harvey County at all.
And I'm gonna say this: the one of the people that has impressed me the most throughout this entire process is Justin Stuckey. If you don't know who Justin Stuckey is, he's the chair of the Planning and Zoning Board. And he is the reason that we're back on this. Straight up, he is it. He is the reason that this whole thing restarted. And at the time that he was doing that, I was kind of scratching my head. But at the same time, he is the person that I have been absolutely the most impressed with. And one of the reasons that I am so impressed with him, Tuesday, he made this statement over and over and over again. And I wanted to stand up and say, would you scream that louder for the people in the back? This is a living document. This isn't the end.
It can change. It can grow. New things can happen. All the above.
And he was making that statement to try and bring to a close a debate that they were having over solar energy. And it was all wrapped up in the definitions of what's private, what's personal, what's commercial, who's going to benefit. Can we put limitations on how far in distance can benefit from a singular installation of solar panels? I mean, all of this stuff. And I was sitting there listening. You can't think of everything. You can't regulate and do everything. No. And he said over and over again, this living document, we can come back to this. And he's 100% right. And the fact that it is a living document and we can come back to it is why we're here now.
Well, I will say I agree with that. Nothing in government is finite, right? It can all be changed. The mechanism in which this took place, it can also happen the other way as well, and it just depends on people that are involved. I know that there was one thing when we were talking about in the beginning on the program that you wanted to mention, and it had to do with a book.
Oh, yeah.
And we're getting close to the end. We got a few minutes. Yeah. But I just want to give the floor to you, Chad. If anybody's listening, wondering, we kind of talked about a few topics. And when Chad comes on the program, we get deep sometimes and talk about some things. But I'm really interested in this book that you have. And if you'd at least say the full name and the author so we can give them the shout out that they deserve. But I'm just going to take it. You have at it, Chad, and then I'll close the program when you're done.
So the Healthy Harvey Coalition, Harvey County Health Department, is launching a county-wide book club. That's where this came from for me. And when you take a look at the book, your initial gut reaction is, why on earth would the health department be involved with this? Okay? Here it is, man. It's 13 ways to kill your community.
Bring it over here, Chad.
Over here?
There you go.
Here we go.
13 ways to kill your community.
Yeah, 13 Ways to Kill Your Community.
By Doug Griffiths.
Yep, MBA. Doug. Yeah, he's from Canada.
Okay, very cool.
So, it's a and I got to say that the folks over at the health department, I mean, they are, the irony of that title is not, and their sponsorship of this is not lost on them. They get it. Okay, but I have read just a little bit, and this book it's freaking amazing. Now, 175 copies sitting over at the Harvey County Health Department that are available free of charge. All you have to do is participate in a book club and discussion group. Oh. So just, if you go check in with them, and the plan is to have discussion groups in every community of the county. There's already like 3 of them going on in Newton. And then there's also going to be an online one, and there's going to be a big wrap up at the end, hopefully where everybody can come together. Cool. The irony of that title and the health department being involved with that is not lost on the health department, but I've read just a teeny tiny bit of this book. I mean, very literal, just about that much. But what I have read is flat out incredible. I read a section of, well, it starts on page 24. Starting on 24, don't engage youth. And not engaging your youth is a recipe for disaster for your community. And you know what? This dude is so spot on. And the way it's written is very humorous and very tongue-in-cheek, but it's designed to get you thinking. He defines youth as anybody 35 or below.
Huh.
He's not talking about your teenagers. He's talking about your 35-year-olds.
Like your, yes.
And he's talking about
young families.
He's talking about how important it is. Of course, everything written with reverse psychology in mind.
Yeah.
He's talking about how important it is to engage that age group and get them into leadership roles. Let them dream. Because, you know, your 20s, your 30s, your 35s.
Yeah.
You haven't been, by and large, you haven't been beaten down by life yet.
Yeah.
You're not quite as jaded. And I'm going to tell you right now, at this age, I'm jaded. Yeah. In my 30s, I was a little more idealistic. So it really struck a chord with me. And so I would really encourage pretty much anybody to head over to the health department, get a copy, start reading it. And if there's an if I hear from enough people that there's an interest of a discussion group being led out of the Kansan office, I'll do it. I'm not saying I'm going to do it. I'll say I will do it if I hear from people who want to do that. And so, yeah, I'm really excited about it. I wrote a story about this that's supposed to, I think it appeared Thursday. And I think it's going to be a good thing for us.
Very good, Chad. You are the man.